In today's episode, we're going to take a look at a company you probably haven't heard of, but that I think are probably going to score very highly. Before we get started today, I've been taking a look at the YouTube analytics, and this tells me that of all the people that are watching the videos, only 50.9% are subscribers. That means 49.1% of people watching these videos are not yet subscribed to the channel. If that is you and you are enjoying the content and you enjoy the analysis that we've been doing, please consider subscribing to the channel. The more subscribers we get, the more views we get, the more comments we get, and the more people will eventually learn about this channel, which will be an awesome reward for the work that I put into it, because we don't get paid for doing this stuff. I mean, we make about £40 a month in ad revenue. It's not worth the money for that. Bear in mind, I've spent about 10 hours per company analyzing these companies. Then I'm putting all my information on my keynotes into slides. Then I'm recording these episodes, putting them together. Then I'm editing them. Then we're uploading them to YouTube. It's kind of mental, but I love doing it. And it's, I guess, the only reward I really get is seeing the channel growing, which is actually quite exciting. So that's why I like looking at these analytics. So if you're not subscribed yet, please do. Please consider doing so, I should say. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up for me. Cheers, guys. Hey there, guys. Welcome to episode number 64 of the FTSE Show, the show dedicated to the analysis of UK FTSE stocks. My name is Chris Chillingworth. I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas. I am recording this pre-Christmas because I plan to take an entire week off with my children. So I'm actually recording this in advance. So technically today it's the 23rd of December. By the time you watch this, it's like the 27th, 28th, something like that. Or far later. But Merry Christmas regardless. Yeah, I'm planning on taking a week off so I can spend some quality time with the kids and stuff like that. So today we're going to take a look at a company called Tristel PLC, which you probably haven't heard of before. They're not a household name. And until I started doing analysis back in 2014, 2015, I'd never heard of them. Tristel are an interesting company, and financially, the whole setup looks really good. They've had a few wobbles here and there, which we're going to go through. But I think by the end of this, they're going to score pretty highly. So it'll be interesting to see where they rank at the end of the video. So this is Tristel PLC. Let's dive in. Okay, so we start off with a brief introduction about the business then. So they're a UK manufacturer of infection prevention and contamination products. So they produce a chlorine or chlorine dioxide formula that disinfects items that usually can't be sterilized by heat. So there are certain medical apparatus, equipment that can't be sterilized from heat. And so Tristel provide a unique patented chlorine dioxide formula that disinfects items that can't be done from heating them up, essentially, because of the materials that they are made from. They've got three main segments of the business. So the main segment of the business is Tristel, which is the self-titled infection control product that's used in UK NHS hospitals. They produce sprays, gels, wipes, foam. There's loads of different products within that range, but it's all predominantly used in a hospital setting. And there's Tristel, which is disinfecting and cleaning product used in animal settings, veterinary sectors, stuff like that. There's Tristel, which is a contamination control product used in the pharmaceutical sector. All manufacturing is done in the UK, in Newmarket and Cambridgeshire. Tristel Wipes system has become the most widely used disinfection method in ENT, I think that's ears, nose, throat, cardiology, and IVF departments in the UK. The wipe system is extensively patented. What's the English word for that? I'm not sure. The pronunciation, I'm not sure. Wipes are sold in the UK, Republic of Ireland, Europe, Scandinavia, Russia, United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, South Africa, New Zealand, and they're being registered for sale in China, Hong Kong, and Australia. So quite a global, worldwide presence, essentially. So we're going to dive in. We're starting off from 2012. We're going to take this journey and chronologically have a look and see how Tristel have been performing. Where's the business been? Where's it going? That kind of thing. So we start off in 2012, which is generally where we're going to start off on most of these episodes. They achieved a revenue that year of 10.9 million. They received a true profit, or they achieved a true profit of £600,000, so quite low relative to the revenue. Share price back then only 36 pence, so they were a very small company back in 2012. The board announced a full review of the business after this being their second year of low profit. So they were achieving about 5% net profits. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of companies out there when you analyse FTSE stocks that aren't making any profit at all. So the fact that they're making any profit is a good start, right? But it's just not very high relative to the revenue. And the board were obviously concerned about that, and they'd have the same sort of results in 2011. Now in 2012, and so they wanted to do a full review of the business, try and work out where they can make some changes. The board announced that they plan to focus increasing sales in high growth areas for the Tristel product. Profits for Tristel, launched in 2011, so only the year before, are disappointing, not where the board want to be. Immediate steps being taken to reduce the costs in the business. A big cost reduction program going on already. If profitability cannot be achieved, hard decisions will be taken. That's what they said in the annual report. So that's going to suggest basically, look, if we can't make a profit with this stuff, it's gone. And that's quite a hard-nosed way of looking at things, but I like that personally. That's as an investor, you don't want to be carrying products that are making a loss for the business. So 2013, revenue goes down slightly from 10.9 to 10.6. True profit, they made a loss. They made a loss of 1.3 million in 2013. Share price falls as a result of that, down to 28p. Fresh new look Tristel brand released. So they rebranded, they changed the look, the feel, the branding, the logo changed. The logo changed on all their products, so they kind of brought things a lot more in line with each other, and kind of had this style, I suppose, on all their branding that was very similar. The assessment of the business was completed with a decision made to restructure the business and move away from their legacy endoscopy products and focus on Tristel, Tristel, and Tristel product ranges. So this was something that they did in the past with their endoscopy products, and they decided that's the past, we're not going to focus on that anymore, we're going to move away from that. Revenue and profits down, but these hit a wonderful H2 profit rise after cost-cutting measures were put in place. The H1 suffered due to a sharper than expected drop in legacy endoscopy sales. So they made the decision to move away from the legacy endoscopy sales, but the drop-off was far quicker than what they were expecting. And essentially what this means is that they had addressed the fact that there was no future in this aspect of their business, and they knew that sales were going to drop off anyway, but then they suddenly dropped off much quicker than the board were expecting them to. And so that had an impact on revenue and also had an impact on their profits that year. Tristel products now fully established, contributing 0.7 million to the revenue. Tristel products contributing 0.9 million. In 2014, revenue jumped up quite considerably, 13.4 million, back to being profitable at 1.2 million, which is more like it. That's more kind of like the profit margin that we would prefer to see as an investor. Share price took quite a jump up to 76 pence, so that's a good, good progress. And that generally happens when a company is profitable and it's making decent profit margin. You're going to see a share price growth. So unless you're in a bear market, of course. But in 2014, the restructure work was now completed. There was a return to profitability. Improved sales trends were seen in the H2 of 2013, the previous year. Those continued into 2014. The patents for products were extended up to 2031, so nice bit of protection there for the business long term. Tristel revenue up to 11.5 million. Tristel was at 0.7 million. Tristel jumps up to 1.2 million. So Tristel is the real kind of core business for this company. That makes sense, of course, because that's what they're called. So then in 2015, revenue took another jump. It went up to 15.3 million, true profit at 2.2 million. So, looking pretty good at the moment. This is a good phase for the business. Share price climbs to 97 pence, so just short of £1. Frustration felt in that hospitals are slow to change their products, meaning that adoption is slow. So in the Tristel product range, they're going to hospitals, trying to get hospitals to use their products. And it sounds like the board were frustrated at the lack of growth and the speed of growth, I should say. Revenue climbs 14% in Tristel sales to 13 million. So they're doing pretty good. Tristel product is doing pretty good, and the fact that it's climbed 14% in revenue up to 13 million in sales. So they made 15.3, but 13 million of that is just from Tristel products alone. Anastal products sales climb to 0.8 million. Tristel climbs 15% to 1.4 million. Tristel joined the AIM index back in 2005, so this was now marking that 10-year kind of anniversary, if you will, of Tristel joining the AIM index. They floated at 37p, now at 97p, just to give you context of the speed of that growth. In 2005, revenue was 3 million, now 15.3 million, just to give you an idea of how quickly that business has grown over the last 10 years. So 2016, revenue climbs to 17.1 million. True profit stays at around 2.1 million. However, the share price takes a nice little bit of a jump up to £1.23. So it's the highest they've been since we started this process in 2012. So 2016, all overseas operations are now profitable. 25 overseas sales approvals have been obtained. So with this kind of product, what they're having to do is they're having to go to the governments of all these other countries to get permission and regulation to sell their products. So unlike other companies where they can just sell these products as they want, with this kind of product, when we're talking about disinfectants and chemicals, they have to get certain licenses, certain agreements, certain regulations before they can actually sell. So that's another hurdle that they have to jump over to sell. And it's a double. There's a yin and a yang to that, because yes, okay, it's harder to have to climb over those hurdles to sell those products in other countries, but it also means they're creating a bit of a moat around their business, in so much that if a competitor wants to come along, they've got to do the same thing. They've got to invest the same millions to get the same licenses, to get the same regulations, to be able to compete. So in 2017, revenue was at 20.2 million, true profit at 3.3 million. So that's looking much better in terms of the profit margin at this stage. Share price makes quite a hefty jump up to £2.52. So this is where Tristel really came into their own, and the results really started looking solidly good for this company. The company saw a 43% sales growth overseas, only 3% growth in the UK. So a 43% growth overseas shows that they're expanding very well globally at this stage. Record revenue, record profits for the business in 2017. They invested 600k in a 3.27% stake in an Israeli company called Mobile ODT, a company combining smartphone technology with handheld medical devices, making diagnostics available at the point of care. So I haven't read a lot into this, but my understanding is that this was a company producing smartphone technology software in a smartphone that can connect to medical devices essentially and provide data and diagnostics as they're working on a patient, for example. And this is a new technology that's being worked on, and Tristel decided they were going to take a 3.27% stake in this company, or invest a stake in this company, presumably because they felt like this might be the future and this might be something that's good for Tristel to get involved with. Their first regulatory submission was made into the USA. So in 2017 was the first time that we saw Tristel decide we want to break into the US. And so they had to submit for the regulations they needed to start selling the product in the USA. And this was the first step that they took in 2017. So in 2018, revenues at 22.2 million, true profits at 3.2 million, the share price nearly at £3 at this stage. So these are good financial results. This is healthy growth. The business is looking pretty good. Overseas sales rise again by 19%, the UK by 2%. So definitely the growth is in the global aspect of this business at this stage. They secured their first US regulatory approval for their chlorine dioxide foam, costing them 1.2 million. So again, they've had to invest 1.2 million just to get regulatory approval from the USA so they can sell their chlorine dioxide foam. So the fact that they secured that approval is another big step towards selling the product in the US, which presumably, if these products are being used in hospitals, there's a huge market there, isn't there, in the US, right? For like, how many hospitals can they potentially market to in the US? There's a good opportunity there for the business. So a £1.2 million investment to get those regulatory approvals sounds like a good investment, right? Strategic collaboration with Parker Laboratories was signed. This is a company who are a leader in USA ultrasound markets, but no sales in the USA at this stage in 2018. Tristel sales reach a new record of 19.8 million. Tristel sales fall, however, to 0.9 million. Tristel being stuck at around 1.4 million. So Tristel sales really growing, but Tristel and Tristel kind of just stagnant, not really going anywhere. Subsidiaries established in the USA, Switzerland, India, and Japan. Okay, so in 2019, we've seen revenue climb up even further to 26.1 million. True profit at 3.9 million. The share price kind of sticks around the same sort of place, just shy of £3 a share. So, but the business, the financial aspect of the business, looking pretty healthy in 2019 and have been now for a couple of years, right? Record revenue, record profit year once again. They acquired 3 distributors in Belgium, Holland, and France. Overseas sales rise 26%, UK up 9%. So great sales growth there. Now, sales growth isn't everything. You want to be seeing growth in profit, but it starts at sales growth. If this is a company that's able to find more clients, sell more product, it's generally going to feed well down to the bottom line of the profit. Costs to establish their business in the USA have now reached 1.7 million. Still no sales made in the USA at this stage. This is years worth of regulatory approval and hoop jumping, hurdle jumping, paperwork, financial investment of 1.7 million just to have the rights to sell in the USA. But all worth it if the revenue that's going to come in, let's say 10 years, is going to be 10, 20 million a year, of course. Of course you'll spend 1.7 million to be making 10, 20 million a year in the future. So yeah, lots of hurdles to jump through, but totally worth it, I would say. Company moves its BSI office. I think that's British Standards. I don't know what that stands for. But it's the stamp, isn't it? As far as I'm aware, that it's like a stamp of quality. The company moves its BSI office from the UK to Amsterdam to ensure the ability to CE mark disinfectants and sell within Europe following the outcome of Brexit. So knowing that Brexit was coming, they've moved their BSI office from the UK to Amsterdam to ensure that they can still get the CE quality mark that they'll need to be able to sell their disinfectants in Europe once Brexit has come into play. So a bit of forward thinking there, and it sounds like a no-brainer, really, something that's probably quite simple to do and to achieve. Tristel reaches record high sales of 23.9 million. Tristel sales, however, fall again to 0.8 million. Tristel still stuck at 1.4. So great growth of the Tristel product, but the other products just stagnant, not really going anywhere. Then in 2020, we see revenue climb to 31.6 million, True profits at 5.1 million. That's glorious. It's looking really good and has been now from 2017, 2018, 2019, now 2020. Share price is now up to £4.10, so we've seen a couple of pounds worth of growth in the share price as well. Overseas sales rise a staggering 32%. UK is up 7%, so growth looking really solid within the business at this stage. Sales in France triple to 1.8 million amid the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is the thing, 2020, COVID-19, which companies are going to do well during COVID? Well, perhaps the company who provide disinfectant products for hospitals. So very well positioned for when that issue came along, right? So sales double in China as well as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The company adapted to COVID-19 by releasing a dedicated cleaning solution to hospitals that they've branded. Is it Cash? Is that how you say that word? Cache? Or is it just Cash? I think it's called Cash. But my pronunciations are always dodgy on this show. So, if I've got that wrong, tough. This created a surge in sales for the year. So when COVID-19 came along, they decided they were going to create a brand new product where they've branded Cash specifically for disinfecting hospitals to combat the spread of COVID-19. So they were very quick to come out of a product that could do that. They've then got a market in front of them that they're already serving in hospitals, and it's led to quite a nice spike in sales for the company. Tristel Malaysia was incorporated. They also acquired 80% of Tristel Italia, which means they're now operating that business in full. Tristel sales dropped slightly, so Tristel sales dropped slightly to 23.5 million. Cristal and Anistel achieve a joint 3.3 million. They were no longer reporting on these companies separately. They were now reporting to them as one. That's often done when results aren't looking as good as you want them to look. And so if we merge them together, it's harder to see how they're doing. The new Cash range of products achieve a 4.9 million sales in their first year. So they create this product, they say, here you go hospitals, here is a dedicated cleaning product that is perfect for combating the spread of COVID-19, and they sell 4.9 million's worth in the first year. Then in 2021, revenue at 31 million, so down slightly on the previous year. True profit sticks at around 5.2 million. The share price a nice chunky £5 a share. This is Tristel in their best position, essentially. The pandemic caused hospitals worldwide to curtail the number of patient examinations. This led to fewer medical instruments being used and therefore required less disinfecting. We've seen this across other companies. Any companies involved in the medical industry found this issue where hospitals basically dedicated their resources to COVID-19. They pushed back any non-urgent, even urgent consultations and just regular examinations. And so the hospitals weren't using those particular medical, like ultrasound equipment and all that kind of stuff. They weren't using that medical equipment as often, and therefore it didn't require as much cleaning, and therefore they weren't getting through as much product. So that had an impact on Tristel. So whilst they saw the spike in this new Cash range of products, they were also seeing a degrade in revenue coming through on Tristel products because hospitals were using the product less. The sales spike seen in 2020 subdued in 2021, yet remains higher than the pre-COVID levels. Continued program to begin selling in the US has now cost the business $2.2 million in regulatory and license fees. They're expecting to achieve first revenues in the USA in 2023. COVID-19 obviously has slowed that progress, unfortunately. The board expect to see larger order numbers from the NHS in 2022. Tristel sales climb slightly to new highs of 24 million. Cristel and Anistel fall to 3 million combined. The new Cash range of products falls 18% to 4 million. That says dollars, but it should be pounds in sales. So Tristel's doing okay. The cash range of products doing better than Tristel and Tristel, their long-term products that they've had for the animal and pharmaceutical sectors. And those two products aren't really doing as well, and they seem to be falling every single year. Then we come to 2022. So revenues at 31.1 million. That's pretty good. True profits fallen quite considerably, down to 1.3 million from like 5 to 1.3 million. So we still got the revenue, but profits come off big time. And the share price has fallen quite considerably from was that £5 a share down to £2.80 at this point. So issues caused by COVID-19 in hospitals have still not returned to normal behaviours. The government instructed hospitals to start stockpiling product, which has caused interruptions in regular supply and demand. By the end of this year, it's looked like the issue was finally beginning to seem behind them, as in behind the company. It was something of the past. Brexit has meant the UK government are dropping the CE mark on chemicals and other products. This is being replaced by the UK's own version, the UKCA mark. So that just sounds like more faff. Only products with the UKCA mark will be accepted in the UK. Tristel have incurred further costs as they must now produce both marks due to the global presence of the business. So where they used to have the CE mark on the chemical products to sell in the UK, now to sell in the UK, you've got to have a UKCA mark. And because that product is also being sold in Europe, it also has to have the CE mark. So yeah, it's just more cost for the business. It's more things to think about, more hoops to jump through, all that kind of stuff. The board decided to dispose of Tristel and Tristel product ranges, costing impairment charges of 2.5 million to the business. It's actually cost the business 2.5 million. This is why true profit has fallen. So the disposal of those two products has cost money. This was coupled with a £1 million rise in expenses due to rise in staff headcount. So, staff headcount rising is generally considered a good thing. It's a sign of an expanding business. But it's cost them an extra 1 million in expenses this year just to rise the headcount by 10. So I don't know who they're hiring, but that's £1 million extra expenses divided between 10 people. Someone's getting paid a lot of money. So I don't know how that works out, but that's what they said in their annual report. That's how they explained the profit being down this year. So it was a combination of the 2.5 million and the 1 million extra in employee costs. These factors are the reason for the 2022 drop in profits from 5.2 million in 2021 to 1.3 million in 2022. The decision to dispose of both products taken because sales were in decline, which we could see was happening for years. Allows the company to focus on serving the hospital market only. So they've disposed of the Tristel and Tristel products. So now this is a business that they've got rid of their legacy endoscopy stuff. The Tristel products have gone, the Tristel products have gone. They literally just sell the Tristel products and the cash product range that they created for COVID-19 to hospitals. So they are predominantly now providing disinfectant and cleaning chemicals just for hospitals. It's just for hospitals now. No veterinary services, no pharmaceuticals. They're just cleaning hospitals. So we've had the 2022 annual report out, and that only recently came out, I think, back in August. And so we're looking at what news has come out since then about the business. So there's been a couple of little things that are worth noting. So share price has climbed back up a bit to £4.20 a share. They launched a new ultrasound cleaner in the USA for 2023. Its first ever sales were achieved in the US, so they've started to make the first ever sales. We don't know how much they've made at this stage, but they are starting to sell in the US. Now, profit-wise, that might take a few years before anything exciting starts to happen. They might need to grow further into the USA before we really start to see anything exciting. But there is progression there. Remember, we looked at 2017 when they first started going through the regulations and trying to get the licenses, and we're now sitting at 2022, coming into 2023, they're finally starting to make their first sales in the US. The board expects the US to be a large contributor of revenue for the group by 2027. So in about 5 years' time, they're expecting USA to be that's all they describe it as, a large contributor of revenue. So it's up to you as an investor to try and read into what that might be, but it sounds promising. The Duo OPH ophthalmic device cleaner being released in Canada in 2023. So they're moving into Canada now as well. And they were doing that at the same time as the USA in terms of all the licenses and regulations. So it's all come through at the same time. They acquired a customer base in Singapore, and their H1 results for 2022-2023 year, so we just got the first half results that's just come through, show a 13% rise in revenue. No information necessarily about profit at this stage, but they've seen a rise in revenue. 13% rise, which is decent. So that's good news. Nothing there that's particularly bad, nothing there that's particularly worrying. And we're seeing share price growth come back in again, so it's looking pretty good. So what I want to do now is I want to take a very quick jump to the finances and just have a look and see how the finances have been going. Okay, so here we've got the finances of Tristel PLC. As you can see, revenue growth has been consistent. It's been very good over the years. In terms of the gross margin, no concerns there. In fact, that margin has been steadily increasing. We're looking at 64%, 69%, 79%, and it's stuck at 79% the last 4 years. So that is the slice of the pie after cost of sales have been removed. So that's a good situation. Looking at expenses, I've got no concerns over the expenses either. You're looking at 70%. It has jumped up a little bit, but that's a really healthy expense rate. There's no concerns there at all. Depreciation costs a little bit high, but again, that was due to the spike in the impairment costs as well. So that should go back down again next year to something a bit more stomachable. And as a result of those impairment charges, they've lost a bit of profit, and it's knocked it down to only a 4% profit margin that year. Since probably 2016, I would say the profits have been really healthy, and so then it's just 2022 where the profits have taken a hit. But we know why that is. We know it's taken a hit because of that impairment charge of 2. Imagine if, look, they were on 5.2 million in 2021. In 2022, that's been knocked down to 1.3 million in profit. Yet revenue went up ever so slightly, really not much at all, from 30.9 million, let's call it 31 million to 31.1. So really not much change, but the profits took a bit of a hit. So I think, bear in mind that we're seeing H1 revenues climbing, 14%? 14% already. We're probably likely to see a return to far better, healthier figures in 2023, so that bodes well. Just taking a look at the balance sheet, this is a company with no debt. They have no debt whatsoever. I love companies with no debt. It's very hard for a company with no debt to mess up, to fall to nothing. So there's the security there, it's like these companies that carry on big debt, or those companies, if results don't do very well, they can be in trouble because they've got these debts to pay back. How are they going to pay debts back if they're not profitable? But for a company like Tristel, if they go down to only making £1 million profit 1 year, no big deal. They've got no debts to worry about. So that's still just profit coming through. I like a company with no debt. It's a big green tick for me. There are some trends going in the wrong direction right now in terms of the depreciation costs are rising, expenses have been rising, the interest payments have been rising, profits have fallen, but we know there's a reason behind that. It is going to affect the score because the score relies on factual financial figures. So it will affect the score. But when we look at the score in a moment, we have to bear in mind that when 2023's data comes out, if it is better, it's going to increase the score. So we want to kind of bear that in mind when we look at the score in a moment. Let's take a quick look at the price of the company. This is a company with good, solid, consistent share price growth. They've been doing really well. They're now trading at about £4 a share. However, when it comes to pricing this company, it's difficult to do because, again, we're not making much profit right now, and we've seen this on a few other shows. So what we can do is we can speculate, and we can say, okay, well, look, what if they were making the profit that they were making in 2020? Let's say 2023 comes along and they're back to making the profit they were making, the earnings per share that they were making back in 2020. Well, at a price of £4 a share, you're looking at about 2.5% return. So the earnings per share represent 2.5% of the price per share. That, to me, indicates that, unfortunately, £4 a share is too rich, because when you're only getting 2.5% earnings per share on the share price, it's not much at all. I mean, the earnings per share in 2020 was 11 pence earnings per share, and you're paying £4.20 for a share, so you're not getting very good earnings return on that. When we look at net assets per share, which is another way that you can try and start pricing a stock, these are very basic ways of doing it, but it's a good starting point for beginners. You can look at the net asset value of the company. The assets minus the liabilities give you your net assets. Divide that up over the number of shares you've got outstanding, and you're looking at 61 pence net assets per share. But remember, we're buying them for £4. So again, you're not really getting a huge amount for your money. So what all of this tells me very quickly and very easily is that £4.20 is too high. It's too expensive for this company for what you're getting. Now, we're working all that out based on 2020's kind of peak level data, as in when they were at their most profitable. So it's expensive for then. So for now, it's no go at all, because in 2022 this is a company making like $1 million in profit. I think it was 1.3, was it? So the price is massively way too high based on their profitability now. You can look forward and you can say, okay, well, what's the EPS growth been like, and where are they going to be, let's say, in 5 years time based on their EPS history, let's say their growth rate. And you can say, well, okay, if I was to pay £4 now, what would that be getting me in 5 years time? What kind of return would I be getting off this stock in 5 years time if I bought today at £4? It would still be too high. So it's a great little company, I would say, but just massively overpriced. And unfortunately, I would want to see share prices. If we were, it's a difficult one. If we were sitting at the 2020 data, let me just see. If we were sitting at the 2020 data, so if we were achieving an EPS of 11 pence per share instead of 2, then I would probably pay £2 a share for this stock at the peak of their profitability, which suggests that we're not going to really be buying Tristel right now, unfortunately. You can speculate, you can think, well, look, in 2021, this was a share that was up at £6.50 a share, now at £4. Will they get back to £6.50? Quite possibly. But when it comes for me and looking at where I can invest my money for the best potential return at the best possible prices, my analysis suggests that Tristel is just overpriced right now. But there may be some of you that just like this stock enough that says, you know what, I'm willing to pay £4 a share in the hope that it will get back up to £6.50 and maybe higher when the markets recover. That's quite possible. So yeah, a decent little stock, I would say. And so when it comes to scoring up this company, Tristel goes straight in at 4th place. They scored 50 clean score. Now remember, when the next year's report comes out, we're not going to be seeing that until August 2023. So we've got a good 8 months to wait before we see that. But when that comes out, if the results are looking much better, that clean score will go up. And maybe we'll do a revisit. Maybe we'll come back and see what impact the financial results have had on its clean score, and we can run the algorithm again and we can see what impact it's had on it. I would perhaps expect it could go up to 60, maybe, based on the new financial information that might be coming out. But yeah, at the moment it's scored 50. It's a decent company. It's one of only 4 companies that I would even bother looking at in any finer detail. The rest of these companies that we've seen, no good. But Tristel, Porvair, 888 and Antofagasta are our top flyers so far. So I hope it's been a useful episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. Merry Christmas. Hope you have a wonderful time, whatever you end up doing. I'm going to have an amazing time with my kids, which I'm really excited for. Thank you very much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Cheers, guys.